Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY!
43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
Pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Pretty simple, baby. I win. Welcome aboard. God, that makes me laugh still. I was talking about that last night. Welcome aboard, everybody. How are you? Jim Coyle with you as always here on this Friday. Indiana Sports Beat Radio brought to you powered by Andy Moore Honda. Get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com. Make sure you go there. Looking forward to another great program. Bob Kravitz, Zach Osterman, Casey Bartley, Jeffrey the Greek joins us ahead of tomorrow or this weekend's bowl games. And then Monday night, of course, the national
That is the only
championship.
remaining bowl game, the national championship.
That's it?
Yeah, if you won't even call that a bowl game, it's really just the national title. But yes, that's the only remaining college football game on the docket. Washington versus Michigan.
That's sad.
It's the end of an era. It'll be the final team in which there will be a Pac-12 opponent, because as we all know, the Pac-12 will cease to exist unless Oregon State and Washington State just stay and make it a Pac-2. But I'm pretty sure at least one of those teams is on their way to the Mountain West. Am I wrong?
Well, I just don't see him getting rid of the Pac-12 mantra. We'll see. Who knows? You're right. I don't know. We'll see. Or you can look at it. It's an all Big Ten final.
And that's another way to look at it, of course. A lot of people were thinking, we're going to get Alabama, Texas, and it's the future of the SEC. Well, that's not what we're getting. We're getting the opposite. We're getting Michigan and Washington, the future of the Big Ten.
Now, I wonder how this would go. Say this was next year, and if the two teams that played in the Big Ten championship were undefeated at 12-0, like Michigan was, like Washington was, that would have booted one of these teams.
Now, if you're talking about next year, you've got a 12-team playoff. All that really does is lower your seed number. You'd still probably would have been in the playoff, but you'd be like a 5 or a 6 or maybe even a 7 seed.
How did the Big Ten end up doing? Did we see that? Here's I can go backwards real quick. Missouri beat Ohio State. So there's an SEC over a Big Ten. And then Ole Miss beat Penn State. There's another SEC over the Big Ten.
I do think there were 4 different Big Ten SEC matchups that I can think of, and I know they all 4 were SEC winners. Wisconsin lost to LSU. Tennessee Tennessee destroyed Iowa 35-0. And then the 2 other results you already mentioned. Between Big Ten and SEC opponents. So the Big Ten versus the SEC in bowl games this year was not something the Big Ten can be too happy about.
Michigan, Alabama.
The only one that mattered, right?
Absolutely. The Big Daddy. But
and Maryland defeated Auburn. I forgot about that game.
I was secretly pulling for Alabama.
How come?
Well, who the hell wants Michigan to win?
I was the same way. I had a money line bet on Alabama as well, so that was an extra incentive to. Normally, I wouldn't pull for Alabama, but in the circumstances of this season, a lot of people appear to be pulling for the Crimson Tide, and really a massive number of people pulling, especially in Indiana, pulling for Washington over Michigan on Monday.
Oh, absolutely. Go Washington. Go Michael Penix. Go Kalen DeBoer. Would love to see that. That would be incredible. I can't wait for that game. I can't wait for the game plan to see what they're putting together. It's going to be exciting, I think. I don't see that Michigan can just shut down the most prolific offense in the country. But at the same time, Washington is going to have a very difficult time with Blake Corum and Michigan's running game. It's for real.
Yeah, that's true. And speaking of running games, I don't know the status of Washington's running back, Dylan Johnson.
He's
the
supposed
player
to
who
be
got
back.
injured. He is? Okay. That was a potential issue for the Huskies based on what happened at the end of that game against Texas, and not even including all the madness that ensued at the end of that game. But thankfully for Washington, it appears, I guess, that he will be able to play against Michigan in the title game.
Not a problemo. Hey, shout out to everybody. Fred, Bob from Georgetown, Larry, Las Vegas, Larry. David says he'd rather watch the Lady Hoosiers over the men. They play hard, tough defense, and their offense is a masterpiece. The players move and the ball moves. He ain't lying. He ain't lying. I was there for a little bit of the Indiana women's game last night as they destroyed Michigan. They were up 20 in the first quarter.
I heard that they were perfect from the field in the first
13
quarter.
of 13. 13 of 13. Not only that, I believe that Mackenzie Holmes and Sydney Parrish were perfect in the first half, as Indiana shot 81% in the first half. 81%. I don't know the stats for the rest of that game, but that's astonishing. You're not going to beat anybody, or you're not going to lose to anybody hitting 81% without question. Sean, how are you, sir? Morning from Muncie. Saying this for the first time ever, becoming uninterested in Indiana men's basketball. How long until football season? Oh, man.
I saw someone else tweet that out. I don't think it was someone named Sean, but I did see someone else saying how long till football season because of all the hype surrounding Kurt Signetti and, the program right now.
Gritty's
more
more interested in the Colts. Football taking precedence over men's basketball? What the hell?
Is the sky falling?
Sky's falling, baby. Mike jumping on, saying hello, go Colts. Yeah, Colts got a big one this weekend, man. It's I wish they had to flex that game, of course. I may have mentioned this yesterday, but the Colts, the Hoosiers, and the Pacers all at home on Saturday, I think all at the same time playing.
Winning they're in for the Colts.
Oh, yeah, it's losing or not.
How long has it been since the Colts have been to the NFL playoff? It's been more years than they would like.
Always. Sam says, good morning from a chilly 57 degrees Winter Garden, Florida. He's got socks on with his sandals.
Oh, man.
You can't do
Florida
that.
winter right there.
You can't wear socks and sandals, man. You just got to put shoes on. 3 weeks to the Montverde Invitational. Was down there a couple years ago. Would love to make it back down there. Jason pointing out, oh, yeah, there you go. Maryland beat Auburn. Indiana did not lose a bowl game this year. Illinois at Purdue tonight. Yeah, the game that it's lacking the same luster that it did without Terrence Shannon. But Illinois has been playing so well that we'll see. But it's at Purdue. Tough place to play. I'm not sure they can overcome that. Russell pointing out Michigan's defense is very good. He's not lying there. Carl says the women were 15 of 15 to start the game. They didn't just go 13 for 13 in the first quarter, but they would go on to hit their next two shots as well. First time that has happened in Division I since 1999. Thank you, Carl. Yeah, they were blistering. 81% in the first half. I mean, that's like not missing. It's crazy. But their shooting is good. And it doesn't matter. We're talking 3-point shots, free throw shooting. It's fundamental basketball. Someone mentioned earlier that they moved the ball. Yes, the ball moves. They set picks. They set screens. They free shooters. They run plays to get people shots. And it's not one person. Hell, that's a dangerous team, that Indiana women's team. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's Sarah Scalia or Sydney Parrish or Yarden Garzon or Mackenzie Holmes. You can just go on. They're all dangerous. And the men's team doesn't have that. And there is a gigantic difference. A couple of things. They don't have that many dangerous weapons. And I don't know that they're setting them up for success like the women's offense does. But that's a typical college offense. Kind of different. I think a lot of Indiana fans would be quite happy to see that style run with the men's team. Fred says the Brad Stevens, oh my God, don't get that going, might be in town for the Pacers Celtics game Saturday night. No. Brad Stevens is not, don't even.
Why are people so obsessed with Brad Stevens? Like, I know what he did, I know his credentials, but why are Indiana fans so convinced that one day he's just going to plop down in Bloomington and be the head coach for Indiana?
And Fred's not saying that, but I get what you're saying, and I don't know. He had success. He took a small Indiana team, Butler, to the greatest heights. I mean, he almost recreated the Hoosiers. Butler almost became Hoosiers for real, the movie Hoosiers. And
I just feel like he would come in to Bloomington, theoretically, obviously, and it'll have so much expectation that he would never be able to live up to it.
There's something to that, but I think that's going to be the case no matter who it is in Bloomington. The expectations are always going to be high. They're always going to be Bob Knight expectations. Yeah. And one thing I have to tell people over and over, Bob Knight is not walking through that door, to steal a line from Rick Pitino from years ago. Bob Knight's not walking through that door. Indiana was good because they had Bob Knight, because they had a coach that was great. They had one of the greats that knew what he was doing, that knew how to run, that morphed his own offense, the motion offense, was a master at coaching it, preparing his team for it, was a master for preparing his team for other teams. He was a genius. I'm not ignoring other things. I'm just talking about one specific thing right now. And he was a genius, a coaching genius, period. You don't have success without a really, really good college coach. And so the expectations can remain there, but it doesn't matter that they're going to be met unless you have that style, that kind of a successful coach. So while the expectations will always remain, there's that. Jamie, how are you doing from Grand Rapids? TPP, new one. What about Pat? I'm missing that one. You have to fill me in.
He's saying Pat Knight. Why not Pat Knight?
Well, Pat Knight is not Bob Knight. I mean, I love Pat, but he's not Bob Knight. That just being the son of greatness does not make you great. And I'm not saying anything about Pat. Bob Knight is such a nearly mythical figure now. But that aside, what he was a genius, a coaching genius. And That's just not easy, to find. This is also a different time. There's just a lot of things that goes into it. You've got to have the right coach without question, but this is also a different era in college athletics. I don't know how Bob Knight would have handled the transfer portal. He had plenty of players that transferred in his day, period. Can you imagine if the transfer portal was open? Holy crap. He would get people pissed off and they'd be jumping out here and there. But then you had lots of people that wanted to play for him. So Russell asking, will I ever get past Bob Knight? As great as he was the game passed him by towards the end of his coaching career. Everybody recognized that. No, they won't, because they won 3 national championships during that period. They won numerous Big Ten titles during that period. I think 10. So when you have that level of success, that's what you become used to. That's what you want back. So no, they're not going to not getting past it. It's the comparison. So there's that. Hey, we've got a great schedule. Bob Kravitz joining us today. Zach Osterman, Casey Bartley, and Jeffrey the Greek. Plenty to get to. And we've got you, most importantly. John, the producer, as well. Back with all that and more right after this break.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
All right.
All right. Oh, my love, my darling. Oh, come on. BobKravitz.com can't be reached. I don't believe you.
Let's see if it works.
I don't believe you.
BobKravitz.com. Wonder why he's usually on by now. I haven't heard from him either way. It took me to it, so it's fine. I was curious. I hope it didn't get shut down.
I'm punching in all the stupid HTTPS crap now, and it worked.
Let me send Bob a text. You never know.
You never know. You never know. So where does Bob turn after the playoffs are over?
He usually goes to Pacers coverage, usually. And obviously, Indiana and Purdue, typically, from what I've noticed. Right. He covers all the Hoosiers. Where's he? Does he live in Indianapolis, I assume?
Uh-huh. Yeah, he do.
Indianapolis really is I haven't been to a ton of cities, but it is a very well-designed city compared to some.
Yep. And it is a sports town, peoples.
It is. If I ever had to move to Indianapolis, I would not be against it.
Uh-oh.
Someday.
A fracas.
Excuse me.
A post-game shoving match breaks out between James Madison and Louisiana. A fracas.
All right. I haven't heard from Bob. Maybe he'll pop in, but I did send him a text, so we'll see.
and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday. It's weekend time, baby. Appreciate you being with us. Hopefully, Bob Kravitz joins us. We are expecting him, but sometimes things keep people from doing things. Last night in men's college basketball, some scores for you in games that took place. Arizona just destroyed Colorado. You know, they've 11-3. They've had a couple of losses, but 97-50. Memphis, number 15, Memphis edged out Tulsa 78-76. James Madison beats Louisiana on the road 68-61 in a post-game shoving fracas. I was just watching it, and it seemed to be between one of the guys that was in the middle of it was not even dressed. He was in street clothes. Not good. Gonzaga, easy work with Pepperdine. They win that one 86-60. And then tonight on the schedule, today's Friday, right? Yeah. Number 4, UConn is at Butler. Damn it. That would have been a good game to go to. May have to see about that. Iona at St. Peter's. St. Peter's, the giant slayer in the NCAA tournament. Miami, number 9, Illinois at number 1, Purdue, as pointed out earlier. The game that may have lost a little bit of its luster, but that's at 8:30 on Fox Sports 1. Certainly a game worth watching, but we'll find out if Illinois can put up a fight to Purdue without Terrence Shannon. But they've been playing so well lately. I mean, it's on the road. That's going to make it very, very difficult. Louisville beats Duke 61-44. Is that a men's game?
That's women's basketball.
I was going to say.
Louisville men's is another story.
Yeah. And, you know, I was thinking I was at Simon Scott Assembly Hall last night. They probably had, I don't know, 10,000 people there. You know, a really nice crowd. The bottom section was not completely full, but it was well over 3/4 full. So 9,000. A solid home crowd for a Michigan team, which was nothing special. But I was thinking, isn't Louisville averaging like 5,000 people per game
for men's or women's? Men's basketball has gotten down. I haven't seen the numbers recently, but it's worse than last year, and you know, rightfully so. They haven't shown.
I think that they're averaging like 5,000 a game.
I think it's less than that. I think it's 2,000 or 3,000.
That can't. Now, see, that shows me.
I'm gonna try to show you a photo. I've seen photos. I mean,
Louisville fans, that's bull, because when Indiana back in 2008, when Tom Crean took over the mess that he inherited, and they went 6-28 or whatever that record was, Indiana was not just getting 5,000 people a game. People still went to the games. So anytime people want to talk about support, you can just throw that at them. Got a nice little Bob Knight conversation going on over in the Andy Moore Honda hotline about they're still talking about Bob Knight.
If I can find a good visual of the Louisville.
How about this comment by
crowd.
Pete? Says maybe number 19 JMU basketball players will follow Signetti to IU. That's kind of funny.
I'll tell you what, that is insane that both the JMU football and men's basketball programs are having very similar style of seasons.
Dude, I say it all the time. Buffalo. Buffalo was James Madison before James Madison. It's maybe 3 years ago now, 2 to 3 years ago. But Buffalo was ranked in football and men's basketball. And I'm like, who the hell's Buffalo? I mean, I knew it was Buffalo, New York, but I'm like, Buffalo is not a school you'd ever heard of from the standpoint of success at that level. But Buffalo's football coach was Lance Leopold. He's the guy that's resurrected Kansas. Their basketball coach was Nate Oates, who's now at Alabama. Being successful. That's what successful coaching does. Buffalo has not been able to duplicate that success because they didn't duplicate the coaching hires that they had at the time, which is hard to do. It's lightning in a bottle.
Jim, I've got a visual of the home crowd at a Louisville game right before tip-off. And I'm not going to play the sound here, but I want you to see this. This is what a typical crowd at a Louisville men's basketball game looks like. Nobody in the upper deck sections at all, and very sporadic as you see it circle around the gym, the camera. And this is what, other than when they faced Kentucky this year, playing. This is what a typical match at the Yum Center looks like.
When they played Kentucky, there were more Kentucky fans.
Yeah. I mean, at least it looked like it. You would think so.
Well, it was an opportunity for Kentucky fans to get in there. Carl pointing out IU had a bit over 8,000 last night. They did have 11,000 last Sunday for Illinois. Their crowd is without question. It's consistent. It is consistent. Now, on the same face of it, though, if they had a 6-22 team, is it going to be the same? No. I mean, I understand winning breeds excitement. It's the same with football, men's IU football. You're going to see a lot more butts in the seats next year for IU football, and I think that starts in the game one. I don't know that they sell it out, but there are damn sure going to be more butts in the seats. I would venture to say that there have been more season tickets sold this today versus this day a year ago. So winning matters. I get that. But with Louisville, it's like it's the only thing that matters. They just drop off the face of the planet. I mean, how can you have Louisville is a major metropolitan city.
Yep.
So
and that's been there. Like Louisville basketball is the pro team in Kentucky. I mean, yeah, you have UK, but they don't have professional sports in the state of Kentucky. And so they treat their college teams like they are pro teams.
Well, and my point that I was making is they're in the middle of a metropolitan city. So they have a lot more to draw from right there. Yep. Bloomington is 45 minutes to an hour or longer from portions of the Indianapolis audience that comes down for games or wherever it is that they're coming from. Indiana's men's basketball audience is not coming from Bloomington, although, obviously some are, but a lot of them aren't. Whereas Louisville draws mostly from right there in the city. It's an easy drive. They have less of an excuse. I know that they've given up on Kenny Payne, which it's kind of sad, but at the same time, Kenny Payne doesn't seem to be fighting for his job. I just don't get that feeling.
It's very weird the way that he kind of approaches press conferences after games and even before games. He's just always seemed like he's been way in over his head, and it's really just a matter of time until they're able to move on from him. And, you know, they could do it sooner. At this point, I kind of doubt it because there was a very good window of opportunity to do it between Christmas and New Year's. And they had like a 13-day break between the Kentucky game and their most recent game. And that was, they passed up on it. And they're going to save $2 million if they wait until the end of the season. And we'll just have to see if that's what they do. I mean, if not, then they're in for another long off season.
Jason pointing out Bobby Hurley was at Buffalo before Nate Oates. So he's kind of started that success there. I didn't know that. So that's a good bit of information. Thank you, Jason. And then Brian says that's exactly what they deserve for hiring Cheating Patino, hookers for recruits. He had nothing to do with that. That was, what was that assistant coach's name? McGee?
Andre McGee, yeah.
Andre McGee, yes, who has never been heard from again. He has been sent to the...
It's almost like he's in the witness protection.
He has been sent to the basketball island somewhere of guys that you never hear of again. Oh man, what was I going to say? Daggone it. I forget. There you go. Brian says horse racing is professional. There's your professional sports in Kentucky.
He also said NASCAR, which
they don't have NASCAR anymore.
They don't use the NASCAR track in Kentucky anymore. It still exists, but they don't use it. It's not a part.
What a shame that is, to build a track that size and for it to sit there in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. It really is. It's in Sparta, Kentucky, and it's
halfway between Louisville and Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And it's like maybe 100, 200 years, 500 years from now, somebody digs that up like a Roman Colosseum or something.
Yeah.
What was this? What? Oh, wow. Look what we found. A former racetrack. Renata says she splits her football season tickets with her in-laws this year because she wants to be there, and her in-laws, we took back the deal and the deposit and get 2 free tickets to 2 of the 3 first games. There you go. Should be enough. Rob joining us. How are you, sir? Not happy with the job that Woody's doing. Loading says that he always thought Kenny Payne was the real brains behind Kentucky's success, which is because he was given a lot of that credit by many of the players. And that could have been the truth because he wasn't the head coach. There were certain decisions he didn't have to deal with or make. Not being the head coach is a huge deal. You have your lane and you can really succeed in a lane because there are parameters that you don't have to worry about as the head coach. The buck doesn't stop with you. It's a little more relaxing of a feeling. The pressure's not on you. Oh, I can't even say that one. Quigliotto hitting us up on the Andy Mohan hotline. This spring, IU has a chance to do the funniest thing imaginable. I'm waiting. Crickets. What would that be?
Are you trying to get me to say it?
I don't know what he's talking about.
I mean, I have a guess, but I'm not going to say it.
Well, the only guess that I'm talking about is make a change of basketball coach.
It's not happening.
That ain't happening. Yeah, anybody that thinks that Indiana would dream of making a change at college at coach is dreaming. Period. That ain't happening. Indiana would not do that. They've never been that kind of risk taker. They've until Kurt Cignetti came along, the hires were not stacking up in their favor. And I just, no, they're not what you call a preemptive school.
Right.
Great question by Russell. Did Liam McNeely commit to Woodson or IU? Yeah, that's a good question, but I'm going to guess IU. But if there were a coaching change, it could possibly change things dependent upon how quickly.
But again,
It's not happening. It's not happening. It's not. It's like I'm not even going to finish the sentence. It's not happening. I don't even know. Just because I understand why people are upset, because in year 3, it looks like the program is teetering back down, which absolutely should not be happening. And I was in this discussion last night with someone who says, man, no, you get 5 years ago. No, you don't. This ain't 20 years ago. You don't get 5 years anymore. It doesn't take 5 years. You have the transfer portal. You have NIL. You have so many tools that people never had before that no, one season should be long enough to get it going in the right direction, which there was positive traction after one season, but that was with people in place in addition to a few other things. But right now it's not going in an upward direction is all I can say. But we'll see. There's a lot of season left, a lot of games left. Can't predict what's going to happen. We've got to take a break. Lots more coming up. We'll be back with you right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for probably should have tried to call him.
He may have something going on.
I bet he overslept.
Or he could be, they have Indianapolis. I was going to say he might be traveling to Houston, but they're not playing in Houston this weekend. They're playing in.
Man, he doesn't travel.
He never goes to the away games. I thought he did.
They're at home anyway.
Yeah. That's what I figured, but that's what I figured out when I was talking to myself about it. If we don't get him today, though, which at this point I'm sure we won't, I'm sure he'll send something to us. As long as he's good, I may ask him if he can just come on Monday. We could talk after, like just to say the Colts win and they go to the playoffs. We could talk to him about that on Monday.
Oh, don't forget, we will have Greggy Rakestraw.
Don't you usually talk high school with him, or what is it that he wants you to talk about with him?
Well, I mean, he covers the Colts as well. He does.
He does. Well, maybe we don't need Kravitz on Monday then.
Thank you, Dale Connolly. I've never seen that before.
Seen what?
There's a like thing on here, and it tells me who it is. Yes, for those viewing us on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Thank you very much. We greatly appreciate that. And the like button while you're at it. Notifications, let you know so you don't miss a show. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I saw a stat yesterday.
All right, here we go.
Here's a
go ahead.
Well, I'll give the stat when we get up there, but
Okay.
thank
Here
you,
we go.
Mark and Dale. Appreciate you guys.
Payment free for 90 days or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to anymorehonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday. Thanks a lot for being with us. As always, brought to you by our good friends Cheryl Sizemore and Remax Realty. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl, and her 2 decades of experience could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. A stat was pointed out to me last night that kind of amazing in regards to IU basketball. And I may not have it exactly right because I'm going off of memory, but in the last 3 seasons of Tom Crean, of Archie Miller, and the first 2.5 seasons of Woody's tenure, 15 losses of 15 points or more. Crean, who was fired, had 8. Miller, who was fired, had 10. Woody, who has had nothing but talent on these teams, has already had 15. Crickets, crickets, crickets. That's people used to lament Tom Crean for a lack of defense. Well, he had half as many blowout losses as in the last 3 seasons of his 9-year tenure that Woody's had in the first 2.5 of his. That's kind of telling. And 2 of Woody's teams were NCAA tournament teams.
Well,
so the first 2
he's only had 2 teams. He's only had 2.
Right. So those were both NCAA tournament teams. Neither of Miller's teams were NCAA, or none of those 3 were NCAA tournament teams. And Tom Crean in his last 3, I don't know, I'd have to go back and look, but
his final year was 2017, I believe. And the year before, maybe. They won the Big Ten title, which is
yes, he won a Big Ten title in his last 3 seasons without question. So
it's a weird stat.
It's not a good stat.
Definitely not a good stat, but it's weird that you can have that, but also have a Big Ten title in that time frame.
No, he only had 8 losses of that nature, where Woody Woody's had 15
in 2 seasons
already.
I got you.
Double the amount with tons of talent. These are not teams that are devoid of talent.
I do want to point something else out too, though, and this may or may not have a lot to do with it, but the Tom Crean years and the Archie Miller years never had tough schedules, especially the non-conference. Mike Woodson has made it a point of emphasis to schedule tougher in the non-conference. The problem is that's just never paid out well for them yet in 2 years. I guess this is year 3.
Yeah, well, there's nothing.
Remember, Tom Crean, especially Tom Crean, his non-conference schedules, other than when they were going to Maui and stuff like that, Tom Crean never had a hard non-conference schedule.
Yeah, I don't remember. They played Kentucky.
Until 2013, once they decided to quit playing Kentucky, and then that was replaced with the Crossroads Classic.
Some truth there, but yeah, we'd have to compare all that together without question.
I think three of Indiana's 4 losses this year so far are blowouts. 2 of them are to non-conference opponents, Auburn and UConn. Obviously, you played Kansas close at home, but again, that was a home game.
What happens if Indiana does not make the NCAA tournament this year?
Obviously, the panic button will be hit by most if it hasn't already been hit. There will be a shorter leash on Mike Woodson next year, and obviously there will be a point of emphasis to get back there quickly, because in this day and age of college basketball, you can't miss the tournament more than 1 year in a row, especially for a program like Indiana. You can flip your roster like that if you have the right head coach in place to work the transfer portal and, of course, getting good recruits in from high school. But it's a much easier – the best example we've seen is Iowa State. They went from having, a 4 or 5 win season to being in the two season. Oh, that's insane. To being
2 and 22, I believe.
Or the Elite 8 the following year. You can do that if you have the right pieces in place. So if Indiana were to miss the tournament this year, Mike Woodson would have to show over the offseason that he's willing to completely revert to something totally different and try something out completely new next year, if that's the case.
Russell says he doesn't know who to compare Jalen Hood-Schifino to on this team. Well, I'll tell you.
There's nobody.
No
on this
one.
Team
no
that's
one.
Like Jalen Hood-Schifino.
Yeah, there is no one on this team. That's why Jalen Hood-Schifino has a spot on an NBA roster. Jesse doesn't think Malik Renew will be here next year. Not quite sure about that one. Now
he keeps putting up the numbers the way that he can. Like, if it becomes a consistent type of thing, like Trace Jackson
not sure
Davis.
that he's there yet. I'm not sure that he's there yet. Now, Kalel Ware, I'd say he's gone.
But what's interesting, though, is I feel like Malik Renew's a better player than Kalel Ware.
I don't know about that, because Ware's a more prolific scorer. He's just got to continue to learn to play into that 7-foot body of his. But
yeah,
he's
Kalel Ware definitely has a better skill set overall, but Malik Renew is way more of a consistent player right now for Indiana.
Well,
if Kalel Ware was able to be what his potential is every single night, then he's the best player you have on the floor.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because Indiana has some great recruiting coming ahead. I wonder if they end up getting Derek Queen. I think that they do, but we'll see. I know Liam
we'll have Ja'Kai Newton next year, obviously, unless something, that people aren't expecting. I mean, you never know. He can jump in the transfer portal, whether he wants to or whether they think he will or not, even though he's never played.
Well, there's always going to be somebody jumping in that portal that you don't expect. Tamar Bates last year was the guy, and it's going to happen. It just is the nature of the beast now. But Jesse's right. The only thing that Indiana has going for right now are their 2 bigs, which have both been very consistent as far as their play. And unfortunately, those 2 guys are probably Indiana's best 3-point shooters.
Mackenzie Mbako's getting there. He just needs to
He's actually the best shooter.
Yeah.
But as far as getting it going, yeah, he's certainly getting. You're right. I have to agree with that. He looks so good when he has a shot. It's just like
he relies on being. I feel like he gets his confidence from just seeing the ball go in 1 or 2 times, and once he's done it once or twice, it's on for Mackenzie Mbako. But if he misses his first couple of shots, it feels like he's in trouble for the rest of the game.
Mike Ham says, there's the rub, isn't it? The comparisons between Crean, Lil Rhodey, and Woody. 2 coaches fired for some of the same issues that Woody is getting a pass on. Truth to that.
What exactly is he referring to? I just want to know what he's talking about.
Getting beat Not the program is at a.
But who said
me-
Woody's getting a pass on anything?
Well, he is he not?
Up
I mean,
until
he's not going anywhere is the one
Yes.
thing.
But I don't.
So-
What did? I just don't get the whole phrase.
Those
of
two guys
Woody's getting a
got
pass on.
fired. Now
After Rhodey got fired after 4 seasons. This is year 2.5 for Woodson.
yes, but
No one's go ahead.
I'm just gonna say which direction is the? Yeah, you can't fire anybody 2 years in.
Especially if they have, I don't want to say they've exceeded expectations in the first 2 years, but
Well, they
they've at
did
least-
what the other two guys didn't do in the last couple of years of their tenure.
Yes. So I don't think saying that Woody's getting a pass on anything is right at this point in time. I mean, maybe down the road you could potentially say that, but just because he hasn't lived the expectations so far this season, especially when you're only halfway through, and maybe not even quite halfway through yet, that's a little premature. Even though, yes, the trajectory isn't great, but I don't think it's fair to say that Woody's gotten a pass on anything just yet.
Well, I think he meant getting a pass from the administration. Maybe, I don't know, but yeah, what are you going to do? It's been 2 years. A, B, they've been in the NCAA tournament both of those seasons, something that they had not accomplished in years prior to that. Sadly to say, he's simply not going anywhere, and his best friend is the president. What's the title of the board of trustees? The president of the
Quinn
board of
Buckner?
trustees. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're buds, man. And so
I really
you
can't
got
believe
that
this is a
going.
topic of conversation. I mean, I know fans are frustrated, but I did not think
Well, it's
that
always a
Woody being
conversation
fired
with fans. Well, I don't think that that's the conversation. Not being fired. My gosh, nobody. I didn't say that. I definitely didn't.
I
say
know
that.
you didn't, but like there's
But that's what fans do. They overreact.
yeah, it is. That's the
And
truth.
in today's world, everything is about now. Everybody wants everything now. And I get that. And I think that there's some, because of how the college game has morphed, there's some truth to it, though.
And I agree with you, because let's just say Woody had missed the tournament in his first 2 seasons. That'd be a problem. And there would be legitimate conversation right now about him being let go if that were the case. But he hasn't had that happen yet.
Exactly. So there you go. We've got to take a break. Lots more coming up. Zach Osterman's going to join us in the next hour, along with Casey Bartley, Jeffrey the Greek. Plenty to talk about. Glad to have you along for the ride on this Friday, heading into the weekend. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
All right. Some of these comments are good.
Which one are you talking about?
Just a few of them. Someone said I'm greedy. I want a 4th banner in my lifetime before my last orbit of the sun. I want 1 banner. I haven't been alive to see any of them, Brian. But I also know what's realistic in terms of what the administration's going to do. I do think if Indiana goes out and beats Ohio State this weekend, a lot of the noise will calm down, at least for the time being.
Yes, until they lose the next game.
Until they lose to because the next game's Rutgers on the road, until they lose that game. Even though, in my opinion, this team should beat Rutgers, even if it is on the road.
Yep.
But that's just my thoughts. Now, if they lose to Ohio State this weekend, there could be some trouble. Because then at that point, you got to go steal another road game that you're not supposed to lose or not supposed to win. Is there a spread out for this game, by the way, yet? I don't know.
I was damn sure talking about firing Archie in year 2.
I tell you what, I never, and I still know what.
Oh
realistic
my God!
I never liked
railed
Archie.
on him.
Even when Archie got hired, I didn't like it.
There was nothing to like. He's an ass bag. He's a total ass bag. He needs a personality lobotomy. He has no personality. He is. Go back and look what the players said. I mean, I said it for 2 years, but nobody cares what I say about it. Go back and look what the players said after he left.
There's no line on the game yet, but the ESPN matchup predictor gives Ohio State a 58.8% chance of a win over Indiana on Saturday.
At home.
But that's not a line. That's their ESPN analytics and stuff.
Well, that's going to be a 2.5 point game, probably.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. I'll reach out to Zach, make sure he's good. Here we go. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday. Hope you're ready for the weekend, people. Lots to get out and watch on Saturday. UConn at Butler tonight. Man, that should be 6:30 on Fox Sports 1 at Henkel. Damn it, I wish I would have seen that. That would have been a great game to catch. I mean, live and in person. Number 9, Illinois travels to West Lafayette to take on Mount Edie and the Boilers. Can Illinois stay hot? We'll talk to Casey Bartley about that. He'll join us next. And Jeffrey the Greek joins us. We'll talk about the matchup between Washington and Michigan on Monday. Who you liking? And not just who are you liking, who do you think is going to win that game? I'm still going with Washington, man. I'm still going with Washington. They've just got this something. And I hope that it extends to a big-time win for the Huskies. A big development for women's basketball between the NCAA and ESPN announced yesterday that 40 NCAA championships, including women's basketball, volleyball, well, this is not just women's, baseball and softball will be on ESPN networks for the next 8 years. But they're trying to work out there's Zach Osterman. I'm sorry, Zach, I was looking away. Work out a segment deal where of success for eventually paying players. But Zach, how's it going, buddy?
I'm good. It's going well. How about you, Jim?
I cannot complain. It's Friday, so I've got that going for me, which is nice, as always. Indiana preparing to take on an Ohio State team tomorrow at Simon Scott Assembly Hall, where I'm assuming, even though there's no line out that I've seen, they're going to be an underdog again, which is highly unusual at Simon Scott Assembly Hall, especially in league play. And but that's something we're seeing, and that's a little surprising. But this team is not quite played up to where a lot of people thought they would be.
Yeah, I don't. To be honest, I mean, first of all, I understand why they're the underdog. I mean, I think if you watch Indiana's performances, to this point, I don't think you can argue that frankly, this team is not, where it would need to be and I understand, like, you don't win anything just by being the underdog or the favorite or whatever, but where it would want to be, where it would need to be favored in a game like this. The flip side is, and I say this as someone who voted Indiana, I think 6th or 7th in my preseason All Big Ten ballot. So it's not like I'm not going to pretend that I didn't think Indiana had some capacity this season, some agency. But in the same breath, and we said this about forgive me. We said this about Michigan. We said this about, frankly, we said this about Ohio State. We said this about Wisconsin. We said this about Rutgers. We said it about teams that have kind of gone in both directions so far this season. The middle of the Big Ten was hard to gauge, and it wasn't. It was not. I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. It was not like we didn't have questions about Indiana. And Ohio State's kind of instructive in a way. We had questions about both these teams. Ohio State's answered theirs. Indiana hasn't. Or at very least, the answers to Indiana's questions have not been particularly sufficient, at this point. And so it's sort of one of those, I guess what I'm trying to say is, while on the one hand, I understand that anyone who sort of says, any fan who's frustrated with Indiana's playing, who is disappointed with kind of where the team is, on the other hand, it's not like, I mean, this team was not ranked in the preseason. It was not in any conversation for anyone's, Big Ten preseason favorite. I try to swerve these things for the most part, but if you looked at preseason bracket projections, like Indiana was, very tenuous. Some had them, some didn't. Most places that had Indiana had them as a double-digit seed or close to it. So my point is, I'm not sort of excusing the way Indiana's playing. I understand anybody who's frustrated by that, but I think it is important to just kind of also recognize that, it wasn't like there was some sort of level of expectation that we put on this team that that it's not meeting. We said this team may struggle, and they are, and that's just kind of where, things fall at the moment.
Yeah. Ken Palm, a lot of people have talked about this, has Indiana going 1-7 in the month of January. And that would leave them with a 3-7 mark in conference play at that time, if that ends up being the case. And if it turns out to be true, they're going to have a hell of an upward climb in February to just make the NCAA tournament this season.
Yeah, and again, first of all, you're absolutely right. And second of all, I would just say, again, I don't think we necessarily – I don't know that anyone ever necessarily said the NCAA tournament was, a likely outcome this season. Now, I think that there's a separate sort of, more philosophical conversation to have, which is essentially that the NCAA tournament should be a minimum expectation for Indiana basketball most, if not all of the time. Like, I don't think that's unfair. And I think even if Mike Woodson were sitting here, I think he'd agree with you. And I think he'd also point out it's January 5th. And so we're having these conversations, and we did this last year when they lost those 3 games in a row in early January. And we said, boy, this thing looks like it's entering a tailspin. They're not going to be able to arrest it. What a disappointing season. And then they tore off, 9 in a row. And they just completely and totally changed the whole complexion of the season. This is why it's always like kind of one of those, let's see. If they win Saturday night and then they win at Rutgers, and I'm not predicting that, but it's not out of the realms of possibility for Indiana to beat a decent team at home in Assembly Hall on a Saturday night and then go beat a Rutgers team that, frankly, has its own problems right now. Well, then all of a sudden, I don't know if they're in the, the projected NCAA tournament field, next Wednesday, but we're at least looking at saying, okay, but they're okay now. They're a little better. They're 12-4. They're 4-1 in the Big Ten. The point is, you have to wait to see how it plays out. If the season ended today, no, they wouldn't be in the NCAA tournament. Quite frankly, they haven't beaten a good team. Michigan lost at home to Minnesota last night. They have not beaten a good team yet this season. But the season doesn't end on January 5th. And this isn't me sort of sitting here and saying, oh, it's going to turn around. Everybody's overreacting. It's just me saying, like, you have to wait and see what happens. I have seen seasons when Indiana, absolutely tore the ground up in November and December and didn't make the tournament. I've seen seasons when Indiana looked, frankly, dead in the water on January 10th, and they wound up, getting a bye or a double bye in the Big Ten tournament or whatever. So I guess my point here is just, if the outcome of this season is that Indiana doesn't make the NCAA tournament, then it is fair to say Indiana will have landed below minimum expectations. If this is one of I was going to say, if this is sort of the one outlier season in 5 or 6 where they don't make the tournament, then, again, once we get to that point, we're allowed to say, well, that was 1 year. They turned over half their roster. They lost one of the most productive players in program history. It was always going to be hard. You just have to see how these things play out, and you have to recognize that not everything is always going to be as linear as, maybe people want it to be, or people want it, sort of comfortably to behave.
Yeah, and getting Xavier Johnson up to speed is a big part of this, because he is a big part of the equation that's been missing that they did not expect. And now you're having to get that back integrated and get him integrated. He only played 15 minutes the other night. He had 4 turnovers, so there's some rust there. There's rust within the team. I think last week it was you that pointed out, not only does he have to get back into the flow, but this is a different team than when he left it. So he's got to get back into the flow of that team concept as well.
No, I mean, that's very fair. And I think there were times, Tuesday or Wednesday night at Nebraska where you could see, frankly, him and teammates just not kind of singing from the same hymn sheet, the little stuff, the stuff where he knows exactly where to put a pass to get a guy in the shooting pocket, or a guy knows, just a half step this way, or go just a little bit, don't just crash to the rim at full speed. Maybe go 90% of speed because the ball will meet you there, that kind of thing. That stuff a point guard just needs time to build, that chemistry, that feel. It's like the difference between being medically fit for a game and being sharp. When you say sort of fitness, that sharpness. And that's not just Xavier Johnson. Again, that's his teammates too. That's both ends kind of meeting in the middle, if you understand what I'm saying. And so I think that it's going to take a little while. I would have been curious to know what Mike Woodson's sort of minutes, ideal sort of minutes limit was on Xavier Johnson before maybe the game gets away, because I think he only plays 5 of his 15 minutes in the second half. And I know he's not playing great. He didn't score. He had 3 assists, 4 turnovers. But I also kind of wonder if there gets to a point in the second half where Woodson says this game's a little bit out of control, and I've already kind of got him on a pitch count, so I'm not going to send him back out there and play him minutes that probably aren't necessary to the course of the season, that might ultimately put him in a more risky situation. I'd be curious. I guess my point is, if it's a 2-point game with 6 minutes left in the second half, how many minutes has Xavier Johnson played, and how many more minutes does Mike Woodson feel like he can play him? But you would imagine that those numbers will build up fairly steadily. And, I guess if you want to say the good news is you're at the time of year where you're basically guaranteed to be playing 2 games a week. There's no gaps. There's no weird breaks. You know what's coming. And so I imagine we're going to see a lot more of Xavier Johnson very soon.
Absolutely, and they need that. Not only his leadership, his play. He's a 60-year guy, so that is always greatly beneficial to a team, especially one that has been forced to put Gabe Cupps into an unwanted position of he did not expect to be playing all these minutes that he is playing right now. And it's not that he is not a capable player. He's young, and there's a lot of learning that has to be done, and this was not part of the plan
And it's hard to work that in, especially when he's not a player that has the experience of Xavier Johnson. He's not someone that has quite the athletic ability of say an Xavier Johnson, and Indiana has to make up for that.
No, I mean, and I think there was a little bit of, it was kind of swallowed in it was kind of digested in a way that I don't think Mike Woodson said something on his radio show a few weeks ago that he kind of didn't plan to come into the season playing Gabe Cupps 36 minutes a night or whatever that quote was. I don't remember the exact quote. And there was sort of this, is Mike Woodson being critical of Gabe Cupps? And I don't think it was that at all. I think it was Mike Woodson saying, I never wanted to ask Gabe Cupps to have to do this as a freshman. That I knew he was a good player. And it's clear Mike Woodson rates Gabe Cupps. He trusts Gabe Cupps. Think about the number of times, whether Xavier Johnson was healthy or not, we saw Gabe Cupps on the floor in the last 5 minutes of close games in November and December. Like, he clearly trusts Cupps to make winning plays. But he also looks at him and he says, you're a freshman, you're a point guard. I put a lot of my point guards, and the plan was never to be playing this kid this many minutes. And now if you are able to kind of move him back, step him back to the bench, suddenly your bench is stronger. Suddenly you've got that second ball handler. You're not asking Trey Galloway to do quite as much. And you've got more depth. You've got more options. Your rotations are strengthened, at least in theory. And so, I'm sure Gabe Cupps would say, if he were sitting here, that there are some pretty fundamental ways he's been sort of challenged to improve by kind of being thrown into the fire when Xavier Johnson got hurt. But I'm also guessing that both he and Indiana are going to find some benefit to being able to take him out of that firing line now.
Switching a little bit over to football, Indiana football, talking about Indiana football in December, January, February is not something that is customary for any of us. It's not something that we expect, but that has been the case now with the hiring of Curt Cignetti, whether it is what he's doing, whether it is the fans' response to it, or even Michael Penix and Kalen DeBoer and those guys playing for a national championship. It all keeps coming back. And the fortunes of Indiana football right now are just on the rise. And it's great to see, because the fans are behind it, of course, as long as until they have a reason not to be. But right now it's pretty incredible to see the this float that Indiana football's riding.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Penix thing, I wrote something about that this week. That feels like kind of its weird own thing a little bit, and it kind of a separate discussion. I don't think there's any denying, though, the work that Curt Cignetti and his staff have done. We talked a lot about it, going back obviously to the days and weeks after he was hired, leading up to sort of that December signing period. And then there was, of course, the wave of transfers from James Madison after the Dukes played in their bowl game. I mean, you look at, we'll see kind of what role Indiana has in mind for Elijah Green, the running back from North Carolina. But the other three commitments Indiana got yesterday, I mean, all to me either fill positions of need. The two safeties from Old Dominion, you would imagine, are both going to be, I mean, they started next to each other last year. You would imagine they're going to be competing to go right back into the conversation together as the two starting safeties at Indiana this year, especially when you look at just how much Indiana lost from that particular sort of position group off last season's roster. And then Elijah, is it Surratt or Surratt? I honestly am not sure.
I'm not.
But, I mean, he was just insanely productive over 2 seasons at JMU. And he's the sort of, I've looked at a number of these. When people have asked, is it good news? Is it bad news? The number of these guys Indiana's taking from James Madison. And I think obviously there's always a level of familiarity that's going to help. There's going to be a lot of guys in that locker room now that are going to be willing to sort of testify to Curt Cignetti's methods and his approach and his attitude and all those different things. But the other thing I would say too is there's a number of these guys: Aiden Fisher, the linebacker, Michael Kamara, the defensive lineman. This certainly applies to Surratt. I believe it's Surratt, but I'm going to figure out how it's pronounced before I make
That sounds about right.
There's a number of these guys that if Indiana had made no coaching change at all, and these guys had gone to the portal and Indiana had pulled them out, you'd be intrigued. You'd say he played for an 11-win team last year. He was crazy productive. He was first team all Sun Belt, second team all Sun Belt, third team all Sun Belt, whatever. Well, that's an interesting profile that's clearly ready for a step up to the Power Four, and let's see what they can do. I think that sort of the idea that this is all getting colored by, forgive me, I can't put my words together well this morning. I don't know why. This is all getting colored by the whole sort of, well, they're just following Curt Cignetti from James Madison. And there's going to be at least some of these guys that come to Indiana. I mean, law of large numbers says some of them just won't handle the step up as well. We won't see as much of them, whatever. But there's enough of these players that were remarkably productive for a really good James Madison team that are now following the coaches that helped build them into the players that they were in the system, the offense, the defense that allowed them to thrive, that it's hard not to imagine at least some of these guys making a quick impact. And a guy like Surratt is a big one because, he didn't just sort of go into the portal and go straight to Indiana. He opened up his recruitment. He reported offers from Kansas State, Wisconsin, Purdue, South Carolina. I think Cal was in there. There might have been a couple others. The point is there were other major programs that wanted him, and he still wound up in Indiana. And while we talk about the need of filling that safety position with some experienced players, that wide receiver room just looks as good and as deep and as productive as it has in a really long time for Indiana. You've got, guys on the outside like McCulley, Surratt, EJ Williams. You've got that whole host of players that it seems like, and we'll see where guys fit, but it seems like we're brought in part because of their sort of their profile in the slot. Then you've got other young returners like Cam Perry and Omar Cooper that I think have really high ceilings, depending on kind of the roles that they're given. You also get the sense, frankly, this team hasn't done, or this group, this coaching staff hasn't gone crazy with tight end recruiting. You can also kind of get the sense that this is going to be an offense that's going to be running 4 wide a decent amount, which means you're going to need these guys, these receivers. I just think that it's just kind of another intriguing layer of an offseason that's looking very promising for Indiana.
Absolutely. 10 different JMU players to Indiana right now. And added to that, their best receiver. On top of that, you've got Ohio's best receiver, which is of note because of Curtis Rhodes coming from Ohio, the quarterback. And while there is nothing guaranteed, he's the presumptive starter at this moment just because of his experience, but there is no guarantees whatsoever that ends up being the case. Although here's something for you, Zach. I believe he will be the first. We'd have to go back to the early part of the century, but will he be the first married quarterback to play for Indiana? Because he will be married by the time he plays for the Hoosiers next year. He's getting married in February.
It's a good question. I don't think I know the answer. We're thinning the herd on these guys that have COVID years plus redshirt years plus whatever other years. But again, I mean that's another position that you look at and you say, if nothing else, and they've got 5 scholarship quarterbacks right now. Will they still have 5 when fall camp breaks? Again, I don't know anything. Like, please understand, no one's whispering in my ear. The law of averages tells me somebody's going to come out of spring and say, I don't really like kind of the trajectory I'm on here, so I'm going to go see if there's other opportunities. But if you're Indiana, you've put so much more competitiveness in that room as well now, both short and long term with, in the immediate, you're going to have a guy like Taven Jackson, who got some important snaps last year, against a guy like Curtis Rourke, who's obviously had the career that he had at Ohio. In the long term, Jackson, Brock Lowry, Tyler Cherry, all these. Alberto Mendoza won't be here until I think the summer because I don't think his school allows him to enroll early. But
Is that what it was? I was wondering.
I believe his high school doesn't allow like early graduation and that sort of thing. That still comes up every once in a while. It's not as common as it used to be, obviously, but the point is, there's going to be a lot of guys walking in that quarterback room now saying, okay, the level's up here. The level has increased. And it's also interesting to me, and, you take him in his word, but Kurt Snetti said that he kind of values production over potential. And I think he particularly meant that in the portal. I think he particularly meant that in terms of saying, I'm not going to turn down good football players, but if I'm going in the portal in particular, I'm looking for guys who put it on film, who put it on a stat sheet somewhere that I can hold up to my face and say, this is what they're capable of. And that's, whether you talk about quarterback, receiver, to some extent running back, obviously the two safeties, Jones and I think it's Jones and Asbury. These are guys that come with a resume that is, pretty well filled out.
Absolutely. It's going to be fun and exciting and looking forward to it. What is up next for you?
It's Ohio State tomorrow. I mean, that's all that's up next this time of year, man. It's just, we just keep, the beat goes on. It never stops.
Absolutely. Make sure you're giving Zach a follow and be a subscriber to the Indy Star. I am. Keep local papers alive, baby. Zachary, we will see you tomorrow.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me as always, Jim.
Thank you, sir. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star joining us here. Up next, the Greek. Jeffrey joins us. We'll talk some football right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Welcome, sir.
What's up, folks?
We've got football to talk about in January.
Oh, baby. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Where are you coming from today? I feel like you're in a different location than usual.
Work.
No, I'm just sitting on the opposite side of the table.
Oh,
I'm too
okay.
lazy to be able to turn it all around.
So you have your own water jug at home?
Hell yeah, dude. But you get that thing. You can find one of those things on Amazon for like $50, right? You refill these at Home Depot for like $5. That's $5 a bottle of water for nothing. Also, this has got a hot side, so my wife and every now and then hot tea.
Hot tea.
So instead of warming up the hot tea, it's literally right there. It's instant hot tea. You just put the tea bag in there. I'm telling you, man.
I'm writing this down. Water jug for studio.
Hydration for life.
It's important, right?
It is.
I should put the coffee maker in the studio. I'm always having to run.
That would be pretty
coffee too. The coffee I grind every morning.
Yeah, I'm not that far along. What up, JDG? Jeffrey the Greek. Mike Shenfield says, "What up?"
We're talking football, right? Today?
Yes, sir.
Good.
The Big Ten, the new Big Ten, semi-all Big Ten national championship game.
It's awesome.
With 80-90% of the Big Ten fans probably pulling for Washington.
Yeah, I just did a poll. On that.
I contributed to that. I can, and you probably can guess.
You voted Washington, I bet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not only do I think they'll win, but I'm wanting them to win for sure.
Ooh, well, we're not on the same page with that, but I also
want Michigan to win.
Or
you don't, or you think Michigan will win?
I think Michigan will win.
Okay.
I'll say this: if I thought Washington would be given credit for the win as a Big Ten team, I would cheer for Washington, but they won't. They'll still label it.
That's true.
They won't label it a Big Ten conference, So I got to cheer for Michigan.
All right.
I told. Yep.
Free for 90 days or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to anymoreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. It is Friday, baby. We have got a weekend in front of us, and Jeffrey the Greek joins us. It's been a while. Great to see your beautiful face again, my friend.
Back at you. That's some funky music there. I like that. I like that little riff there.
Man, John, he goes from John the producer to John the DJ, Jazzy John, DJ Jazzy John. There we go. Like
fantastic.
That.
Fun fact, that was actually when I was a DJ in college. I was DJ Jazzy John.
You were a DJ. Phenomenal. So was I.
Yeah, you're DJ Jazzy Jeff because it just fit.
Had to. It was meant to be.
Yes. I was not either of those things. I was just me. There was you can't put what is it? You can't put a silk on a sow or whatever. What's that saying? Sow's ear or something?
Yep.
Yeah, that's me. Welcome, brother. It's been too long.
I know, busy fall, mostly good things, but pretty excited about the fact that we got an all Big Ten national championship here. The semifinals were phenomenal. So hopefully the
dude, let's talk about that first of all, because I don't know that it's ever been that way. Both games, great games. One's in overtime, one's down to the wire. Helton down to the wire last freaking play. They had a shot on their last play of the game. I don't recall it's ever being that way.
You know, last year, somebody reminded me last year, if you can remember, Michigan, TCU, that was a down to the wire. Ohio State, Georgia, down to the wire. So last year was good as well. Then, of course, the mega blowout in the championship game. But I still think this was more compelling football on New Year's Day. It was phenomenal, man. I mean, say what you will about the college football playoff, and certainly I've said some negative things about this format, but those two games were phenomenal.
Yes, I am looking forward to. I want Washington to win, and you pointed out you did a poll. What were the results of that poll? I'm curious.
Yeah, so the results I said were, Michigan, Washington, Ohio State, and Michigan State fans kindly don't, vote on this. So basically,
that they followed that rule, right?
Right. Well, I gave a third option, and show me the results. Essentially, what it came out is 2/3 of the people voting are cheering for Washington, and a third were voting or cheering for Michigan. In all honesty, like John and I were joking, I thought Michigan pulled better in that than I thought they would be. I thought it would be like 1-5 or worse. I think that's a detriment to Michigan fans, not over the years. I think everybody in Big Ten countries had at least a run-in or two with Michigan fans. And then obviously all the off-season or off-field is what I should say, stuff with Michigan this year. But got to give the Wolverines credit throughout it all. They've just kicked some butt, 14-0. They deserve to be where they're at.
Yeah. First of all, another reason why I think you can consider this an all Big Ten matchup. The obvious reason that Washington will become an official part of the Big Ten. They're already a part in on paper, but next year they will be official part of the Big Ten. Secondly, Michael Penix, Kalen DeBoer, Nick Sheridan, William Inge. They've got 3 coaches out there, and they're the most prolific quarterback in the country playing for them. So you got that. They got that going for them, which is nice.
And Bill Ennis, a Hawkeye. I played with him at Iowa.
Oh, Was he coaching?
There you go. No, it was. We were on the football team together.
No, is he coaching now?
Yeah, I think he's with Washington now, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
Bill Innis and William Minge are the same person, Jim.
Yeah.
Well, so you're calling him by his own name. I was going to say
Bill is short for William.
Yeah, well, I know that, but the Innis kind of threw me off. I'm like, what?
It would be amazing if there was a William Ennisenge and a Bill Ennisenge.
But I never knew that you played with him. That's kind of because he was here for a bit.
Great guy. Awesome dude.
Yeah, I was at Indiana for a while. Then you got Tom Allen heading over to Penn State. We've got so many different things we could talk about. That's kind of not unusual. What do you think of that move? Not for him, but for Penn State.
Well, for both, I think it's good. People kind of forget that Tom Allen, when able to concentrate on defense, was a pretty darn good defensive coordinator. That's how he made his way up through the coaching ranks to become the head coach at Indiana. So this is no stranger to him. He's coordinated defenses against, Big Ten teams at Indiana. Now he gets a shot at it with Penn State's talent pool. So, I think some guys
one would just meant
to be they're just meant to be coordinators. Okay.
Absolutely.
Phil Parker is a defensive coordinator. I don't think he's fit to be a head coach. In all honesty, I don't think Chip Kelly wants to be a head coach anymore. I think he wants to be strictly a play caller and OC. I would say the same thing about Tom Allen. He did some good things at Indiana, but I think his true calling is coordinating defenses.
I absolutely agree with you 1,000% on that. Looking forward to this weekend or Monday's game, though. I love what Washington does. I know that they don't blow people out, or they haven't been here of late, but what they have done is just win every day. You better not have the ball in their hands at the end of the game with the game on the line. You don't want to be on the other side of that.
No, absolutely. If I'm a Washington Husky fan, my podcast partner for the season this year, Jordan Eggleston, he's a Michigan guy. We recorded on it. And one of the things I wanted to say that I forgot to say when we recorded was, if I'm a Washington fan listening to us talk, I'm thinking, well, another doubter, right? Another team that thinks they're going to beat us. They were underdogs in the Pac-12 championship after beating Oregon earlier in the year. A lot of people had Texas over Washington. They beat them both. So here comes Michigan. It's another team. I get it. This is a gritty Washington team. They come up with the big plays when they need to. That's how you get to 14-0. So if Washington wins this game, if Penix goes off because it's just a passing attack that Michigan just has really not seen this year, I can see all of those things happening. I got nothing but respect for Kalen DeBoer and Penix, but I don't know. This is a different beast. I believe they're going up against with the Wolverines.
Yeah, and I understand that because their defense is undoubtedly stout, but as is Washington and the weapons. It's not just Michael Penix. It's Roma Dunze, the other receiver. I can't think of his name right now. They don't have, and it's not just Roma Dunze. They've got multiple guys that they can throw that ball to. But gee whiz, the balls that Penix was throwing in that semifinal game, I'm like, it looks like an Air Force heat-seeking missile that he's throwing for 60 yards that just lands in the hands of these guys. It's incredible.
Well, it's funny you said Air Force reference there because Chris Fowler called Washington, said they had a squadron of offensive weapons. Dunze, Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan, their tight end Westover is good. I'm with you. I mean, the Penix's ability to quickly break down what the defense is giving him and just rip it, it's phenomenal. I mean, it's all gas, no brakes when he is back there throwing the ball. But I tell you what, running back Dylan Johnson, who is their hammer on offense, went out of that game. That's a short turnaround. This isn't a month off. This is just a week. that is a big deal. I'm surprised I'm not seeing more out of it. I know Washington said he's going to play in the game. How healthy he is, or if he actually plays, I got to see that with my own two eyes. And then on the other side, Alabama is pretty good at getting talent, developing talent, and putting them in a good place to win. Michigan's offensive line gave up 1 sack and 1 TFL versus Alabama. On the flip side, Michigan had 6 sacks and 10 TFLs in that Rose Bowl game. Michigan has been the best team in the country all year long. The only thing that was holding them back is the media bias against Big Ten teams and the fact that they played in quote unquote the weak Big Ten in that schedule. I've never bought it all year long. I've watched this team with my own 2 eyeballs, and I'm telling you, I think this Michigan team has been on a mission since the offseason.
Well, I'm sure they have. Ask Connor Stallions. He'll talk about mission. He's been on a mission. He was on several missions over the last 2 seasons.
But even after all that stuff's gone down, they go into their tougher part of their schedule and they play Penn State, Maryland, Ohio State, Iowa, and Alabama. Guess what? 5-0 every single one. And I can tell you, they were the better team. They should have beat Alabama by 14 or more points. They just played sloppy enough to keep Alabama in the game. But when it was time to go, they just overwhelmed them.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the same with Washington. That game should have been a little bit wider than it was. The thing that changed that was that friggin' muffed punt, because that was a 21-point turnaround instead of Michigan or Washington being able to take that down and score. Boom. They allow Texas to score instead. So instead of it being 21-7, now it's 14-14. Although they came back and scored again right after that, it was never the difference that it would have been. It would have been a 3-score game, but I
had Washington in the 4 points, so I'm with you there. 3.5 points, I think I got it at. So I'm with you there. But yeah, both teams, it was a muffed punt that stopped their team probably from really running away or just proving even more so that they were the better team. Special teams matter. So one would guess that the special teams will be a little bit cleaner for both teams in this game, but we'll see.
Absolutely. Some numbers of note. Kalen DeBoer as a head coach, 104-11. I love that. I love that. I know that a lot of that came from other places, but he's 25-2 at Washington.
Well, and we brought up the same thing on the Eyes on Big podcast. By the way, anybody that's a Big Ten fan, give us a listen. What we pointed out on the pod is, sure, some of that came at the NAIA level, and I think it was, FCS or whatever, but you're recruiting to and playing the talent level at that level. So he's just been a good coach all along. It was an incredible hire by Washington. To unfortunate, obviously, for Indiana to pluck him away. By the way, shout out to Tommy Allen for having the foresight to hire him as the offensive coordinator. Obviously, it was a huge part of why Indiana could have that resurgence under Tom Allen. So he deserves credit there too. But I got to think Washington fans are hoping and praying that he loves where he's at and that they can keep him there for the duration.
Do you know where Kalen DeBoer's first coaching job was?
I've looked it up before, but it's not the Bemer Banks. Okay.
It's not college. It was in the high school level, but it's just ironic. It was at Washington High School.
There you go. The W fits him.
The irony continues. So you think that, in essence, that Michigan is going to end up ultimately winning this game, I'm thinking.
Yeah, I got Michigan 34, Washington 24. I watched a lot of Washington after on Tuesday, Wednesday, and before we recorded last night. It's a great team, right? I mean, obviously, they're 14-0. Again, to go back to something I already talked on, Dylan Johnson being out, that was their their physical presence on offense, especially in the red zone. I thought my podcast partner Jordan Point really smart is definitely the prudent thing to do is to make Washington move all the way down the field, prevent the big play from happening, get them inside the 20 and see if they can score when the field condenses down and the running backs become more important. I got to think that's what Michigan's plan is going to be. Then on the other side, this Washington defense does come up with plays, but boy, do they allow chunk plays. And that just seems to fit right into what Michigan wants to do. I feel like Blake Corum
is a bad man. Yep.
He is a bad man. I think he's as healthy as he has been. I felt like Michigan should have leaned on Blake Corum more versus Alabama, and that's Alabama. And again, I'm trying not to disrespect Washington too much here, but it is just
everybody else has. That's what they're living on.
I know.
That's what they're living on.
That's why I brought it up. But even if, I believe Washington's going to have to commit to extra guys up by the line of scrimmage to stop Blake Corum. And if that's the case, J.J. McCarthy can get it to Colton Loveland, which is their tight end, or Roman Wilson. I mean, they have got weapons. And as long as J.J. just stays within the offense, I can give him 1 or 1.5 crazy J.J. plays, okay? But as long as he keeps it under around 2 silly JJ plays or less, I think Michigan is going to control this game.
Well, buddy, it's certainly great to see you again, and we look forward to doing this next year because it's going to be a hell of a Big Ten season. Next year, Indiana, they lose Penn State off the schedule finally because of the no more divisions, but guess who they pick up?
Washington? Oregon?
Bingo!
Both, not Oregon. Both Washington and UCLA they'll face in the from the West Coast.
But they play Michigan and Washington next year.
As I've been trying to point out for roughly 6 months, people thinking that the schedule change is going to drastically change the fortunes, good or bad, for these teams is just overstating things. These teams are who they are, and they will continue to be who they are moving into the future.
Buddy, I appreciate you. Great to see you as always. Jeffrey the Greek, Eyes on 10, or Big Pod. Make sure you give that a follow as well. Say hi to Big Kurt for us.
Will do. Thanks, guys.
Have a great one. Have a great weekend. Jeffrey the Greek joining us. Up next, Casey Bartley from Boiler Upload. Purdue has a big game tonight with Illinois. We'll talk about that when we come back.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
See you, buddy.
Jeff. Thanks, Jim. That was fun. Thanks a lot, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Welcome, Casey. Sorry we're a little behind this morning.
You're good. How's it going?
Believe, baby.
Yeah.
I just got back into watching Ted Lasso. I finished season 2. I've got one more to go.
Oh, no, nice. There's 2 more. The new season's out, isn't it?
New season.
Third is the last one.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen season 3 then.
Mm-hmm. So it starts slow. So just be prepared. The first episode and a half.
I just love the setup, and I called it from.
Oh, you talking about season 3 starts slow?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
once I saw Nate, I don't want to give away spoilers, but I feel like a lot of people have seen this show.
Don't give it away. Don't give away season 3.
I won't. Well, it's not about season 3. It's about season 2 and the way that it ended. About halfway through that episode, I knew exactly how it was going to end. I'll just say that.
Yeah, but see, that's the one part that I'm like, okay, that's a little. But of course, we're talking about a show where a guy that knows nothing about soccer becomes a soccer coach. So what am I talking about here? Shut up. Yeah, I quickly caught on to that.
It was a great setup.
It's a funny show. It's funny as hell.
And I love Roy Kent. I think sometimes he overuses the swear words for comedic effect. It becomes not as funny, but it's still funny.
Yeah, no, it's good. It definitely starts hitting a couple episodes in on season 3. The first episode,
I've heard the finale is wonderful. Is the finale as good as people say it is?
Yeah, it's good. Have they officially said it's only 3 seasons?
I thought they said it was done. I haven't looked
I know
too
that
much
was the
about it.
original plan. Yep, there we go. Nice.
There we go. Love
Roy
it.
Kent. Roy Kent. He's here. He's there. He's every effing where. Oh, yeah, baby. Have to bust that out again. I think he's absolutely freaking hilarious. He can cuss all he wants because I think that makes it.
Well, I don't care that he
even
cusses.
funny.
It's just when you overuse it, it's just not as funny, is the way I see it. I do think it's funny, like whenever the teacher gets on him because his like niece or whatever keeps cussing or something.
I don't know where she effing gets it from.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
Chop Shop Market and Table has the largest selection of in-house made products around and everything you need to make a gourmet meal at home. Or pick
Real quick, we're only gonna have about 10 minutes here just to make you all aware.
in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wow Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Friday. Thanks a lot for being with us. We're heading out to the sports weekend tonight, a big Big Ten battle between the Boilermakers and the Illini. Casey Bartley from Boiler Upload joins us. Casey, I know that game has lost a little bit of its luster because of not having Terrence Shannon, but the Illini have been playing pretty damn well since they've lost him.
I'd say if you listen to anyone talk, apparently no one has ever beat Farley Dickinson and Northwestern back to back. I know Purdue hasn't, but it really, there's a lot of galvanizing around this group for beating one bad team and one. I think clearly Northwestern's best moment already happened knocking off Purdue.
Right.
They've struggled since. I don't want to entirely dismiss Illinois and what they're doing. I think they are a big around the perimeter, play hard Brad Underwood team. I was a little dubious before Terrence Shannon was out. Guys that are having big games, Damask just had a big game. That big game brought him up to 20% shooting from three. Coleman Hawkins is having a career year shooting 35% from three. I have a hard time trusting certainly Coleman Hawkins and certainly a couple guys on those teams. And I think it's a lot easier to be good those first couple games after something like losing your best player. How do you do when you get into the grind of the Big Ten, when people get sore, when people get hurt, when you have to rely on people? And this Illinois team had problems before Shannon. They didn't get the point guard they wanted in the transfer market. They still lack a traditional big. So I feel like this is a game ripe for them coming back down to earth, going into Mackey, playing against a team like with Zach Edey, where they really have no answer at all. And Coleman Hawkins has been not good against Purdue in his career.
Yeah, and nor should they be in this game at home against the Boilers, who Mackey is a tough place to play, and Purdue playing pretty well right now. Zach Edey really starting to find his new game with his new body, slimmed down a little bit, trying to increase his mobility. But Mount Edey is what Mount Edey has been. You're not going to stop Mount Edey. You have to game plan around him.
Yeah, and Illinois, I mean, they don't have a good option. Dane Danger is a defensive liability. He scored the ball decently well inside, but is that going to continue against Purdue? Shooting 6 of 20 from the free throw line. That is their only big body they have to throw at them. And do you know what Coleman Hawkins' career high against Purdue is?
11.
6 points. It's his fourth year. And all I see is just how he's a mismatch problem for Purdue. I get it. He looks like one. He's 6'10" and plays from the perimeter, but that's a lot. Shot selection still needs help. He's still not a knockdown shooter. And at the other end, he has no hope against sticking with Zach Edey. Zach Edey has banged against the best teams in the country, and they haven't had an answer. Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, they've gotten up for big games like this, and I just don't see the edges for Illinois. I don't see the shot making. And I think the guys they would have to rely on to have big moments are guys that will be put under the pressure in Mackey conditions. That there haven't been a whole bunch of these big games at Mackey. And I got to think that crowd's going to be pretty crazy tonight.
Yeah, plus it's one of the few games. It's a Friday night, so there's not much going on in the college and sports world other than high school games. Right. Which I'm not dismaying the high school games. They're very, very, very important. I kind of hate to see colleges invading on Fridays, whether it's basketball or football. I don't care. Give the damn high schools one freaking day of the week, especially college. College football is aggravating because it's the only day that high school football plays on Friday. And it also aggravates me in basketball because college basketball plays on every damn day. Can you just not do it on Fridays? Come on, guys. Gee whiz.
Yeah, I'm staring at my little cheat sheet here that has all my games on it for the week. And we've got Purdue has their game, and then 5 recruits or commits playing tonight. Just a small list that I have of people I'm watching. So that's definitely a good point. I know football season, like it drives them like a local coach when there's a Purdue game. Entire like athletic staff's just like, well, we're not going to make any door money today.
There's a guy that a high school kid that I want to go watch play and do some a story with. I was going through all the calendars. I think it was yesterday. 5 games. I have an option of 5 games the rest of the season that I can make work. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So it's nuts, the schedule. But there is that. So looking forward to that game tonight. Earlier, and I think you heard us talking to Jeffrey, the Greek. Monday night, we've got the national championship game, Washington, Michigan. A lot of people. I'm a Big Ten guy. I generally will support the Big Ten if they're playing another conference. And there's some people that don't give a rat's butt. And by you shaking your head, I'm going to assume you're one of those.
I'm just all out on Michigan.
Oh, I'm out on Michigan. I was going to say normally. But the normally is not here.
Yeah, normally, just like this time, I'm all out on Michigan.
I'm out.
Your coach has been suspended twice in one season for cheating. Maybe you shouldn't be the national champion, but just maybe there should be some consequence at some point during the season. And this Washington team is super likable. Penix, what he's done, what he's been able to turn into, all the injuries he's come back from, like that's a great sports story.
And Kalen DeBoer is as nice a guy as there is. He's on with us frequently. Just a super good, down-to-earth guy. He's 104-11 as a head coach. Not a bad start to his career.
No, and I mean, what better way to send out the Pac-12 than to bring a championship home to the Big Ten finally?
Well, yeah, that's a quasi-deal. Ironically, I've mentioned it a few times. Next year, Indiana, they do get rid of Penn State off of their schedule because of no more divisions. But instead of playing Penn State, they play Washington.
Yeah.
So they will play Michigan and Washington next season in Bloomington.
At least Penix won't be still here. He'll be in the NFL somewhere because that would probably be
hurt even more.
I'll tell you what, you could have made a lot of money off of me betting that I would never see Penix in a national championship game when he was on IU.
Oh, well, you and a million of other people. No one else would have thought that either, but he did land there and I really like to see them bring that home. It'll be interesting, and we wish them the best of luck. I can't wait to watch that game. But, of course, tonight, Purdue taking on Illinois at home. Tomorrow, Indiana hosts Ohio State.
That should be a good game. Ohio State is playing very well. Indiana still searching for everything that they need to rise up. They've got to do some things to get out of the middle of the Big Ten. There's this circle in the middle of the Big Ten. It's like out in the ocean where all the trash gathers up, and they got to get out of that.
Yeah, in theory, this should be the best Big Ten game in the season ranking wise. I doubt Illinois is this high again when they match up later in the year.
We'll certainly find out. Make sure you're giving Casey Bartley a follow at Bartley Rivals and at Boiler Upload for all your Purdue information. Brother, appreciate you. Look forward to seeing you again next week.
Thank you very much. Have a good one, Jim.
You betcha. Casey Bartley joining us here. Big thanks to Zach Osterman, Casey, and Jeffrey the Greek, John, the producer. Most importantly, thanks to each and every one of you guys for being with us. I will be back to see you tomorrow after the game with Todd Leary, of course, Indiana basketball postgame show as Indiana hosting Ohio State at the Simon Scott Assembly Hall. So for everybody, and until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.